Should an independent auditor be appointed to investigate potential fraud in our daycare system?
America, Seattle just elected a Democratic Socialist as mayor, and in less than 2 weeks, Katie Wilson has established what I'm calling Zero Accountability Doctrine. When asked if she would investigate daycare fraud allegations, the same fraud that got $150 million frozen in Minnesota, she gave a one-word answer. No.
My team is doing a really thorough review of the city's approach to homelessness.
But it gets worse. Wilson just halted homeless encampment removals hours just before the scheduling, claimed she needs to review the city's approach. Meanwhile, the Seattle Police Officers Guild is alleging the new leadership gave a directive to halt all open-air drug use arrests in favor of diversion requirements. Translation: no more arresting drug dealers.
Detectives arrested 11 people in a months-long investigation into a food stamps fraud operation deeply rooted in the CID.
This is the city that Wilson is now running, and she's making it easier, more than ever, for criminals to operate. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Seattle's newest woke mayor is speed-running destruction of law and order faster than any Democrat in modern history. Let me show you how Katie Wilson is turning Seattle into a sanctuary for fraud, drugs, and homelessness. What else is new here? Let me walk you through the level of betrayal happening in Seattle right now. While the Trump administration just froze $185 million in child care funding in Minnesota due to the massive Somali-led fraud ring, Seattle's newest mayor, the new mayor, is officially signaling that she will not investigate similar allegations in her own city. On January 8, 2026, reporters asked Wilson directly, should an independent auditor be appointed to investigate potential fraud in our own daycare system? Her answer: no. One word, no explanation, no concern for taxpayers, just no.
I asked whether she has reached out to President Trump. She said, in fact, that she has done that. She's waiting to hear back.
Translation: she's pretending to cooperate while doing absolutely nothing.
This whole issue is not really about fraud, right? It's about dividing and conquering. It's about making an immigrant community a target, right? There's no reason to assume, based on the identity of a daycare operator, that their small business is doing anything wrong.
But here's where Wilson shows her true colors. Instead of protecting taxpayer dollars, she used her first official New Year's Day post to condemn what she's calling a surveillance campaign and targeted harassment of Somalia childcare providers by independent journalists. So let me get this straight. Federal investigators expose a multi-million-dollar fraud ring in Minnesota. A Washington state rep sends a letter to RFK Jr. calling for a full program review of federal benefits in Washington, warning that fraudsters will pounce when enforcement is laxed. And Wilson's response is to attack the journalist exposing the fraud. Wilson's refusal to investigate has triggered a massive federal response. The U.S. rep didn't just send a polite letter. He's demanding a full investigation in Washington's child care subsidies programs because he knows what Wilson is trying to hide.
We're not yet, but we're working really closely with our agency, DCYF, that oversees a lot of that. And, you know, what we started to get was a real flood of complaints, people concerned, people showing up at their house trying to film children.
Washington's Attorney General Nick Brown is playing the same game as Wilson. He says he's not yet aware of any fraud incidents, but admits he's getting a real flood of complaints, and people are showing up to houses trying to film children. So there are complaints, there are investigations, but somehow, guys, there's no fraud. No fraud.
FBI Director Kash Patel promised a surge of resources to investigate, and lawmakers in the House are expanding their own investigation.
The federal government is treating this as a national security issue, and Seattle's mayor is attacking journalists for exposing it.
Well, it's amazing to me that a 23-year-old journalist, a YouTuber, who's now got over 80 million views on this thing, found more in a matter of hours than Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, our Attorney General, have found in 7 years.
And Wilson's response to condemn independent journalists for doing their job, her administration absolutely refuses to do. Now let's talk about what the Seattle Police Officers Guild just exposed here. According to the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the new leadership gave a directive to halt open drug use arrests in favor of diversion requirements requirements. Think about what this means. If you're shooting up heroin on a public sidewalk in Seattle, the police are now being told not to arrest you. Instead, they're supposed to give you a diversion requirement, whatever that means, which is bureaucracy speak for doing absolutely not a darn thing.
The mayor needs to realize the effect that this is having on local businesses.
And this is happening while Seattle businesses are drowning under the weight of homeless encampments, open air drug use, and crime. One business owner said the mayor needs to realize the effect that this is having on local businesses. But Katie Wilson doesn't care about businesses. She cares about protecting criminals.
The change that I hope that people will start to see from my administration is that we're going to be moving aggressively to open new emergency housing and shelter so that we can really begin to get people inside with the support that they need.
Wilson's solution: open up new emergency housing and shelters. The same failed strategy that's been tried for decades. Spend billions and billions of dollars on supportive services while refusing to enforce law. And then when the programs get worse, all you got to do is just ask for more money. While Wilson is protecting daycare fraudsters and halting drug arrests, Seattle PD just busted a food stamp fraud ring in Chinatown that perfectly illustrates the corruption that she's enabling.
Officers observed individuals buying EBT cards from people, more vulnerable people.
Here's how this scam worked. Criminals would buy EBT cards from vulnerable people at 50% discount in cash. So if you had $100 on food stamps, they'd give you $50 in cash. Then they'd work with local businesses to buy items using EBT cards, sell those items back to the store. Products never even left the shelves. They were just billing the government over and over again for the same items. And the stolen food and household items, they were being sold to restaurants and businesses in King County. So if you're eating at a restaurant in Seattle, there's probably a good chance that the food was purchased with stolen EBT benefits from vulnerable people who sold those cards for drug money.
A lot of times these victims are the vulnerable adults, like I said, the people that are getting these cards for food, and they would sell the cards and then get the money and go buy drugs sometimes.
So the fraud ring is preying on addicts, buying their benefits for half the price, then reselling it to food, then reselling the food to businesses. And Wilson's response to open drug use: stop arresting people. On her first week in office, Wilson halted a homeless encampment removal in Ballard just hours before it was scheduled to happen. The encampment had been there before. It had been swept before. It had been set to be cleared again. But Wilson decided that she needed to, quote unquote, reassess the strategy.
My team is doing a really thorough review of the city's approach to homelessness as we figure out how to begin making improvements.
But here's the thing. Seattle has been reviewing its homelessness strategy for decades while spending billions and billions of dollars, and the only thing that changes is the problem just actually gets worse.
Others, though, say the mayor needs to consider the impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, because there needs to be balance.
Homelessness advocates are celebrating Wilson's decision to let encampments stay, but businesses and residents who have to deal with the crime, the trash, the open-air drug use, obviously they're freaking furious. And Wilson doesn't care because she's not accountable to taxpayers. She's accountable to activists. Katie Wilson has been mayor for less than 2 weeks, and she's already established a Zero Accountability Doctrine that protects fraudsters, enables drug dealers, and prioritizes homelessness encampments over law-abiding citizens. She refused to investigate daycare fraud while the feds freeze $185 million in Minnesota. She halted drug arrests while Seattle PD busts an 11-person food stamp ring. She delayed encampment removals while businesses begged for relief. And she attacked journalists for exposing the corruption that she's actually protecting. This is what happens when you elect a Democratic Socialist who cares more about ideology than results. Wilson isn't governing Seattle. She's surrendering it to criminals while pretending she's compassionate. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.